Hello, LinkedIn. We are on here.
Steve Spiro, you're a mentor, you're a consultant, you're a business owner, but most importantly, you're a host of your own show and you're also a master connector.
Steve Spiro is one of my idols, and I love listening to everything that he does. He's such a dynamic individual.
Some of the topics I really enjoy speaking on is how to really connect, whether it be in person or through social media. I love to lead with my weaknesses. I lead with, my vulnerabilities. It's fine because I'm okay with who I am. Number two is how to go from being inward focused, self-focused, into others focused. Being willing to give and go out there and look to serve. That will attract the right things. Another one is on leveraging LinkedIn to really grow your business. You could reach a lot more people. You could broadcast a message to people that actually consented to want to know you. And then lastly, overcoming big obstacles. I love sharing. I was a shy, introverted kid, picked on, bullied, learning disabled, dyslexic, really in a dark place. I was really in a box, in a shell, and I've been able to break out of that box. And so I love being able to inspire people and really help them. So the Master Connector was born. The world is my networking event, right? I meet people all the time. My goal is to meet 3 strangers every single day.
Steve is open to meeting you. You should set up a face-to-face with Steve. One little conversation can really change your life. All right, LinkedIn, you know what it is. It is time for the Master Connector Show. We have the amazing Steve Olenski, in addition to our amazing Steve Spiro, our original master connector that runs this show. So get into the comments. We want to hear from you. If you're ready for the show, type yes in the chat bar there. Type yes if you're ready for this show. We're so excited to get into this. Now, if you don't understand misperceptions, right? Has anybody ever misjudged you, mischaracterized you, said you were too expensive? Your service was too expensive. Well, what is that? That's a misjudgment, right? It's the idea that you're not worth it, right? And so I think a lot of people can look at this topic and maybe say, oh, maybe it doesn't apply, but it does. It does apply to you. So we're going to get into it today. How do you reinvent yourself? How do you invent yourself to let people know that you're worth it? If there was something that went on in the past and people are labeling with you, how do you recover that? How do you take the label that you think people have on you because of the way you look, the way you talk, the way, the place that you came from, right? And how do you create that reality for yourself that actually is what you want people to think of you, to get past the misperceptions? We're going to get into it all day. I'm going to pass the baton over to my man, Steve Spiro, the Master Connector.
Thank you, sir. Mute button off, did it right this time, so good stuff. But thank you, Cameron. Great stuff. We're super excited about today's show, and so I want to talk to you a little bit about, many times we succeed, and often don't succeed based on misconceptions. I think one of the reasons of people are convinced that they have to go to college and get a degree in order to succeed, and I think that's a misconception. It helps sometimes, but I'm actually 3 credits shy of my degree. And the gentleman that I'm blessed to be mentored by, who's extremely successful, he's also 3 credits shy of his degree. Many people allow beliefs to dictate their path and ultimately their success. And so this script can be dictated by their family of origin, people that they surround themselves with, and just things in our own head, right? The program we kind of received. I was under my own misconceptions for many years. I was convinced that I was horrible at building relationships and a terrible communicator. And after, listen, the words I heard is, after all, you're shy, you're introverted, you were picked on as a kid, you were bullied, right? Who do you think you are? Well, don't believe the hype. As the song goes, don't believe the hype, it's a sequel. I don't know if you guys remember that song, but I do. Anyway, dating myself here. But so if you're dealing with something like this, I want you to know that you can overcome those misconceptions and reinvent yourself as well. What I've learned is that your self-concept is not what you think of yourself, but it's actually what you think that I think of you, right? So it's super important because of that we surround ourselves with the right people who are going to support us and are always going to build us up. And I put a post out. I don't know if Cameron, you have a chance to cue that up, and if not, it's okay. But I did a post just yesterday, I believe, on that, and that the people that we surround ourselves with. So, I'm super pumped and excited. Can't wait to hear Steve's story. You're going to get a chance to hear. I've heard his story. He and I had we met through LinkedIn, and we had a great conversation. And but I'm going to have Cameron go ahead and properly introduce my man. And Cameron, I'll turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Yes, Steve Olenski. I'm going to have you animate yourself on the screen for our viewers here. Steve Olenski is a true unicorn like his older siblings. Steve began his professional career in the supermarket industry, where he learned the value of rolling up his sleeves and getting one's hands dirty. Eventually migrating to the white-collar world, Steve never forgot his blue-collar roots and getting dirty and putting in a hard day's work. Having never graduated college nor taken a writing course in his life, Steve fought his way to working in marketing departments of the biggest brands in the world, including Oracle, as well as a creative director on the agency side. Moreover, Stephen earned a place among the world's most influential journalists and writers, having written for many leading publications for over 20 years, including Advertising Age, Adweek, Business Insider, and his own column at Forbes. Over that time, he's amassed a close network of executives and thought leaders that are second to none. He has been referred to as the distiller of truth, the CMO Whisperer, by the former chief marketing officer of Walmart and Prudential. The former chief marketing officer of the Grammys call him one of marketing's definitive authorities, while the former chief marketing officer of PayPal says of him, "I value his partnership, skill set, and experience." Please welcome to the show the Oracle of Marketing, Mr. Steve Olenski.
Hi, it is so incredible. I'm listening to that introduction going, man, that person sounds impressive. And I mean, I am truly humbled by being here and listening to those words. I very often have to catch myself going, is that really me?
That's great. And Steve, where are you tuning in from today? Where are you coming to us live from?
From my home office in Philadelphia.
Beautiful Philadelphia. So for my Philly folks in the house, make sure you're showing up in the comments. We got Alexandria Rosa showing up from Ohio in the house. We appreciate you. We appreciate our community. Get in here and let us know, really, by the way, too, where you're being misjudged. We really want to hear from you. Where do people misjudge who you are? Type hashtag W for work, hashtag H for home, or hashtag F for among friends. I guess you could put an E for everywhere, but we want to know, right? Get in there and let us know where do people misjudge you most? Steve and Steve, help us out here. Get us started, Mr.
Yeah. And I also want to tell our viewers, in addition to what Cameron said about the W and H and the F, we want you guys in the comments networking with each other, right? We're all about networking, right? This isn't the Master Connector Show also is networking. So please go in there. If you make comments, you see other people in there in the comments, please make sure to connect with each other and find each other, connect on LinkedIn. But yeah, so Steve, we want to hear your story. Obviously that intro, that bio was great, but tell us your story, Steve. I mean, I know I heard it. You and I chatted about it. It was fascinating to me. Obviously, that's why you're on here today. And I would love to hear a little bit of, the journey there and how you got to be who you are today, sir, if you don't mind, please. No,
sure. I very much would love to tell my story. So I think the best place to start is I'm the youngest of 6 kids. My father was very big in the A&P food chain, if you guys are old enough to remember the A&P food chain, which some of our listeners probably may not be, but it's an old supermarket chain.
I grew up with it in NYC for sure.
Okay. Yeah, so when we all got to be of legal age, we got a job. It wasn't, hey, do you want to go to work? It was, hey, you're going to work. And we all started, bringing in shopping carts, sweeping floors, bagging groceries. And I was no different. And I did that for about 10 years. Really didn't know what I wanted to do. When I graduated high school, I enrolled at Community College of Philadelphia. And after one semester, I just realized it wasn't for me. I literally had no direction. I didn't know what I wanted to do. And I was making actually pretty good money at the supermarket compared to my friends who were either in college or working part-time or both. So I thought I was living large, and I didn't know what I didn't know, right? And somewhere along the lines, I migrated to the white-collar world. And my first foray into the white-collar world was working for a Prudential Insurance Company, and I was answering telephone calls. I was the classic 1-800 operator, right? If someone had a question about their insurance or whatever, they're going to call, and I may be the one answering your call. It was a very different, unique experience, and I did it for a few years, and I loved it. I loved because it forced me to learn a lot about the business, quite honestly. But somewhere in my early 30s, I had what can best be described as an epiphany. And not to get all religious and spiritual or anything on anybody, but there's no other way to describe it. And that was to write. And the epiphany was to write and to create and to ideate and use parts of my brain that heretofore I had never used before. And I started on my own. My early writings would manifest via things like poetry and short stories, things like that. Using my daughter at the time, I have a daughter and a son, but my daughter at the time as my inspiration, right? To do that. And it just kept snowballing from there. And then eventually I became aware of a role in the marketing department at Prudential. So I said, okay, that sounds pretty cool. I can kind of leave the phones behind. I put my 2 years in. Let's see what's opening in the marketing side. Unfortunately, I had an older brother who was already in the marketing department, and he facilitated me getting an interview. I got a job. I could barely spell marketing, let alone know what it did, right? But I faked it, right? Got a job and doing some very basic marketing stuff, some strategic things. I was, just glomming on to whoever I could learn from, very much a sponge. And then one day I was at a meeting and I met a copywriter. And I had never known, I've seen it before, I've seen obviously writing, and I never knew the origins of what's copywriting. How do you create, how do you write headlines and pithy headlines and things like that? And I befriended a gentleman also named Steve. That's a common theme here on this episode, apparently. And he took me under his wing, and he's one of my mentors today. I'm forever indebted to him. He was the first person to, quote, give me a shot about to start writing, right? To show off my creative side. And it was very simple, very straightforward. And I connected with an art director, and we mocked up some ads for some print ads, because there was back then was print ads and direct mail. No one knew what the internet was or anything like that. And email was just coming into vogue. So no one was using that from a marketing standpoint yet. So it was print and direct mail kind of things. And the floodgates just opened. It was unbelievable how it came over me, overwhelmed me, right? And my first challenge of overcoming perceptions was when I went to my boss and said, hey, I want to do writing. I want to copyright. I want to get into the creative department. And it was, what do you know about writing? No, just stay where you're at. You had a little fun with it, but it's really not for you. And I did not take no for an answer. I just, okay. And I kept working with the copywriter basically behind my boss's back, until the point of where I got to the point of where I could really show off my work to the heads of the creative department. And they were kind of like, wow, I didn't know you could do this, Steve. This is really good stuff. And I started, to do more and more copywriting, right? And the other person who I absolutely need to mention, there's three very important people in my life who've helped me get to where I am. That's the gentleman named Steve, the copywriter. the other person is an ex-sister-in-law of mine named Jane, and my ex-wife, Terry. Those, Steve professionally and the other two personally, kept pushing and supporting me, while the rest of the world, literally every other member of my family, all my friends, when I told them I want to start writing and I want to get into doing something creative, they saw me as this former supermarket worker and this marketer barely, right? And this guy who was on the telephones. Like, what could you possibly know? You didn't graduate college. You didn't take any writing courses. What could you possibly know about creative writing and doing things like that? So that began my uphill climb, right? That journey to get to really proving people wrong, right? And eventually, after doing enough of that work with Prudential and in that art department, internal art department, I moved on to, and I got a job as a senior writer at a very small ad agency in a suburb of Philly. And another gentleman named Tom Berge, who's another person who I will be forever indebted to, he gave me my first shot in the creative space, for my own role. And I was senior writer at a 5-person agency, and I thought I had arrived. I was over the moon, right? I'm going to get paid, and this is going to be my job, to write, to create, to ideate, to just come up with concepts and everything else that goes along with that. And I was in absolute heaven. And in fact, one of the great things I got to do at that agency was work on a Super Bowl commercial. Now, albeit it was a regional spot, I didn't care. It was a Super Bowl commercial. And so I helped create and co-concept a commercial, and I was on set, and it was at 2 a.m. and things like that. And we were just having a blast, and we're shooting this commercial. And when we saw it air during the commercial, we thought it was the greatest thing ever. Right. Absolutely. And I stayed there for a couple of years. And then I got wind of, and I moved to another agency, and then this thing blogging came along. And what the hell's a blog? Right. No idea what blogging even means. Right. And when I learned that you can get your own blog and you can tell your own story, and if you remember the old GeoCities days, it was one of the first free blogging platforms. I think it was through Yahoo. And I started my own blog, and I'm writing stuff. I didn't care who was reading it. I just thought it was the greatest thing in the world. I can write something, and it can be on my screen on something that's called online and on the internet, right? So I was having a blast. And the biggest break came in terms of my journalistic career when I was reading a copy of Ad Age. And it was a printed version, and I found the name of the editor, who's no longer there, but he's still a friend of mine as well. His name's Ken Wheaton. I want to make sure I call out everybody who's been so helpful to me along my career path. His name's Ken Wheaton. And I emailed Ken because I found his name in the masthead. And I said, what do I have to lose? I have, one of my sayings is you don't get shit you don't ask for, right? I had nothing to lose. So I emailed Ken saying, hey, Ken, I'm sure you get 5,000 emails a day of people wanting to write for Ad Age. I would love to write something for the publication. And I wrote it in what would become my very signature style, very self-deprecating, very conversational, very personal. And I sent the email off, and I got up and went and got a cup of coffee. And this is, by the way, very ubiquitous for me, is you rarely see me without a cup of coffee. And when I got back to my desk, within 5 minutes, I had a response from Ken. And he said, Steve, I get 100 emails, whatever it was. He said, yours made it through the clutter. I love your style. What do you want to write about? To say I was floating after getting that email was an understatement. And within a month, I was in the printed version of Ad Age. Now, Ad Age is one of the Bibles in the advertising industry.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I was at a different agency by then, and I went to show my bosses, and I thought they're going to be over the moon, and they weren't. Yeah. And I couldn't quite figure out, do you understand what this means? Even back then, I could tell this was a big deal because it said written by Steve Olenski, creative director at this agency. So all that free publicity they got, right? But they didn't see that. Okay, yeah. That's fine. And I would come to learn that would be very common in those early days of the internet and online publication. So from there, I got to be in Adweek, and then Forbes came calling. Yeah. And they were starting a new section called their CMO network. And they read a couple things that I had written. They asked me to send a sample or submit one article for them to review. I did. They changed one word and they published it. What? Like I'm published in Forbes, thinking, oh my God, I cannot believe what I've achieved. This is incredible. All the while telling my family and friends what I've done. And I'm thinking, this is great. Even outside the advertising industry, most people don't know Ad Age or Adweek, but Forbes, holy crap, right?
Right.
But that didn't even do it. So those perceptions, that box I was in was still there. Like, okay, this is great, Steve. You're doing your little writing, blah, blah, blah. You got an article in Forbes. Okay, that's great.
I love it.
Right? So the article published in Forbes, and then the next day I get an email from them saying, here's your login. I log in for what? So I wrote the guy back. I said, what's this for? And he said, you have your own column. You can publish whatever you want and write whatever. I said, what? Like I felt like so overwhelmed, and so I felt stupid, to be honest with you, going, oh, of course it is. How do I not know that? Right? This is your login, And I wrote back. I said, I almost wanted to write back, Steve, going, do you have the right guy? Like, are you sure? Right? So I would spend the next 10 years writing my own column. I wrote over 1,500 articles during my time at Forbes. The journey I spent there and the people I met is nothing short of miraculous and incredible and surreal and life-changing. I met everybody from the leading CMOs of the biggest brands in the world to athletes to celebrities, traveled around the world, went to things like the Grammy Awards, right? Spoke at different events, at all around the world, keynote at different events, all because of my Forbes connection. And that I had arrived, right, at what I thought I had arrived. And then finally, at some point during that 10-year odyssey, everybody else in my world said, wow, this guy, okay, he really may know what he's doing.
Right.
And so of course, I'm not the kind of person to say I told you so. But it was, I'd be lying if I didn't get a sense of validation.
And how many years is that, Steve, between when you started out, leaving the packing groceries and insurance till you got to that place where people were like, or at least in your mind, you made it?
Well, that's the thing. It's in my mind versus their mind.
Okay.
So my mind,
my
mind was a lot shorter time. My mind was when I got into Ad Age in advertising, because I'm in the advertising business. And that's the Bible, right? And I had my own article. Again, they were not even online yet, I don't think, or very small. Again, you got to keep it in context, not like it is today. Not that it's easier to write for Ad Age online.
No, I know. I have the background like you, advertising background for sure.
Right. So the publication I speak of. Yeah. So that to me is when I had arrived. Like, oh my God, this is amazing. But it took a few years after that till I got into Forbes. So I started showing up at different events till here's a picture of Steve with Sylvester Stallone.
I saw that on your one of your feeds. Yeah,
exactly.
So how many years is that all together? Would you say roughly? So people started to say that yes, this guy Steve Olenski is the real deal. What was that? How many years?
Probably at least 10 years.
Okay, so you're an overnight. Right. It took you 10 years to be an overnight success. That was the point we were making, right? Because I think people are hearing your story and it's amazing, it's fascinating, it's incredible, right? But I think there's also that feeling like, oh man, I don't know, right? But I want people to understand that, and you're an example of that. It took some time, right? Yeah. But I am curious though, because it almost comes across like you just like walked into success.
Exactly.
It seems like that, but I'm sure that's not the case, right?
No, there was a lot of dark, kind of second guessing, whether I'm worthy. And it's actually something I've never forgotten. I've always tried to keep that sense of humility that I've never arrived. Overcoming perceptions, and it's one of the talks I give, especially to college students, but at any age. Overcoming perceptions is one of the hardest things anybody can do, because when people see you in a certain light, it's extremely hard to break them of that, right? So I had to keep fighting and keep going. And I had, like I mentioned, those folks before, a great support system to keep me going, because there were definitely times I wanted to give up and go, maybe I'm not cut out for this. You know, I don't have
stories, Steve. Is there one story you could tell us about that dark time place where, you know, you were feeling a certain way, something specific happened and something you did kind of got you through that? Anything you could share with us on that?
Yeah, absolutely. So after about my third or fourth Forbes piece, I really thought I had made it, right? And I got an email from a former coworker who basically said, what is Forbes doing? Why are you in Forbes? Right. And I had a bit of an acrimonious relationship with this person, but never thought it was to that point. But they basically just tried to mentally destroy me and tell me that I'm not worthy. Right. And I took it to heart. And it was a time in my life, Steve, when I cared way too much what people thought about me. I put way too much stock in other people's opinions of me. And I let this person win, as I like.
Absolutely.
Yeah. They got to me, right? And I went into a shell, and I very much went dark, literally and figuratively. Like, okay, I'm done. I can't do this. I'm not good at. I did a couple pieces in Forbes. And okay, fine, go back. I even thought about at some point, do I go back to the supermarket? Right. That's how far down I got from this person writing this. Right. Yeah. Now, looking back, it's ridiculous, but I get it. Why, if people are going through this now, it's extremely powerful when someone says something like that, that you let get to you. So the way I got out of it, if you will, as you asked, was that dark place. The way I got out of it was quite honestly through my support system, and they kind of literally, almost literally, but definitely figuratively, kicked me in the ass to go, why are you letting this person affect you like this?
Yeah.
Right. Clearly, this person has their own agenda, right? Whether it's jealousy, envy, whatever it may be, that you've made it and they haven't.
Isn't it amazing how, like, so people want to tear your building down so their building looks taller. You know what I mean? Like, you know, when you start to stick your head up above the crowd, people will throw tomatoes at you. It's crazy. Like, it's amazing. And you know, similar to you, I believe in a huge support system. I think having incredible people around you is extremely important. Having someone who's a mentor to you, who sees in you kind of what you don't see in yourself, right? You know, but for me, I'll just share what I do. I get pissed. I get pissed. I get a chip. I probably built most of my career. I got my black belts all with a chip on my shoulder, man. Not a chip like where I was sassy and I was just a jerk or no, I just had a chip inside of me. I'm like, okay, you see, and it was always a quiet thing. I was all like, okay, I'm going to show you. I'm not going to tell you. I'm going to show you. You're going to see in my mind. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I know exactly what you mean, Stephen. I've gotten those. I'm onto the other shoulder. I've had so many chips on the one shoulder. To prove people wrong, and I use that absolutely as motivation and inspiration to keep me going to this day of going, okay, you know, what have you really accomplished? You know, even after all this time, and there are times, you know, where things like imposter syndrome come into play. If you're familiar, that's a very.
We did a show on that a little while back. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and people are surprised to hear that I go through that. And absolutely, I think every human goes through that,
absolutely.
Right? Where you second guess your own ability and your own self-worth. It is extremely common, and it's extremely dangerous, right? For people to fall into that. Oh, maybe I'm not that good.
Yeah,
you know, it's scary.
No doubt. Yeah.
We got a couple of questions from the audience that I want to make sure we get addressed. First, you mentioned 1,500 articles. Alexandria Rose is impressed, right? What has been your favorite article you've written? I think, you know, for those of us that have dabbled in creating content, you can put a lot out and it can all sort of fade together. Is there any article that sort of stands out?
And before he answers that, we want the audience to hit A in the comments before he answers it, before Steve answers it.
Let us know where
A, otherwise he's not going to answer the question. Put A in the comments right now. Anyway, go ahead, Steve.
So it's a great question, and it's literally like asking me, like, who's my favorite child?
Yeah.
Right. What's my favorite pizza topping? There's it's endless, right? probably if I had to, pick one that I'm most proud of, that I had the most fun doing, and very in a self-serving way, is the 2-part piece I did on the Grammy Awards. And I wrote a piece. I met the now former CMO of the Grammy Awards, who's a dear friend of mine named Evan Green. And I wrote a piece on, I had the idea to do a piece on what does a brand like the Grammy Awards do when it's, quote, not Grammy time, right? Are you sitting around with your feet up? Do you just watch TV all day? And he loved that idea. And so I pulled back the curtain on what they do, and without going into too much detail, but they do a ton of philanthropic work. There's a philanthropic arm of the Recording Academy called Music Cares. It's just an incredible support that they have within the recording industry. So that piece ran, and it just went over incredibly well. They were very happy with it. They got great feedback. So in a somewhat self-serving, I readily admit this, I went back to Evan and said, what would be a really interesting second piece is, now let's go back and see what the brand does during Grammy time, right? And they went, oh, that's amazing. That's great. Let's do that. Let's get you out here for the show, and you can experience it. And I went, okay, I can do that. And I ended up spending.
You can take a trip to the Grammys. You'll make time in your schedule for that.
Suffer through that, yeah.
Well, what's incredible, guys, is so I was expecting to, here's the itinerary. Here's when you're going to fly in the night before. Blah blah. No, they flew me in the week before, and I spent the week leading up to the Grammys attending a different event all around LA and in Beverly Hills.
Right, because it's not
the most fun part is all that stuff. Yeah,
exactly. And the coup de grace, which was the night right before the Grammys, there's a huge party thrown by Clive Davis, who's a very famous producer for Sony. Everybody from Johnny Cash to Adele. I mean, he's worked with everybody. I never once thought, and when I got my full itinerary, it said Saturday night, the Beverly Hills Hilton, Clive Davis. I'm like, what? So I called Evan. I said, is this a mistake? Again, going, what this schmuck from Philly is going to go to, right, in his rented tux. And he said, no, you're in, you're going. I did. I ended up going again the following year. It was just incredible. So in a very self-serving way, Alexandria, I think, who's the one who asked the question.
Yeah, that was the favorite article. So we got to go find that. We got to make sure we post a link to that article in the comments of this piece. Gary Kopervis, I think I'm saying that right. Gary, apologize if I got that wrong. What superpowers have you developed over the years that allow you to overcome obstacles in front of you and other people's you're not worthy perceptions? I think you answered this a little bit, but maybe we can just, because we're getting close to the end here, just give him a nice little tight answer for Gary here.
Yeah, it's a great question, and without question, the number one superpower is not caring what others think and say. And I know that's a cliche, and I get that that it's easier said than done.
But let me play devil's advocate here, because because the other side of this is, we have to listen to critical feedback to improve ourselves. We have to, get some of the feedback, the pieces. We got to hear things. But you're saying don't listen to anybody. So what's the happy medium there?
Well, the happy medium is, and it's a great question, Cameron. The happy medium is identifying who's saying it, right? If you have respect for that person, who they are in your life, right? Versus that other story I told about someone I didn't even care about.
Right. Versus the random person.
Yeah, you got to check the fruit in their tree
to judge you. Yeah. That hasn't put necessarily money in your pocket or time in your life or heart in your stuff, right?
Yeah, it's considered the source, right? In the nutshell.
Yeah.
Love it.
Good stuff. Yeah. So I before we get, and we literally, and we need a really short answer because we're at the top of the hour here. Mm-hmm. But I think everyone wants to know Whisperer. Okay. I mean, maybe it's a literary thing. I'm a Bronx kid, I didn't get my degree. I don't understand. Tell us why Whisperer. What does that mean? Please, real short.
I'll be very quick. I did not name myself that. I tell people jokingly, I have an ego, but I'm not that big of an ego. So the former CMO, a dear friend named Joey Lyle, who's the former CMO of Walmart, named me that many years ago. And it just stuck. And it speaks to my level of understanding into the inner workings of being a CMO. And I've never been a CMO in my life. And that's maybe why I have that knowledge. And it's that I've established a trust and rapport unlike I think anybody. And that's why she felt comfortable calling me that.
Good stuff. Well, we are, this has been amazing. I'm going to wrap up in a minute here, but I'd love for you to tell the viewers the best way to reach you. And if there's any call to action you have for them, please, this is a great time. Again, in 30 seconds or less, if you can, please, sir. You are definitely a communicator. That is for sure.
So on all social, it's my first and last name together. So it's just Steve Olenski. There's no underscores or anything like that. So I'm easy to find on Twitter, Instagram, things like that. LinkedIn, same thing. My site, where you can read a lot more about me and read some of my stuff, is CMO-Whisperer.com.
Awesome. Excellent. Very, very cool. Well, we appreciate this, and this has been amazing having you on. It's been an honor. We've had some pretty incredible guests on our show, but you definitely are up there being with your credentials that you have. But most importantly, I want people to understand that, like you, Steve, and anyone can accomplish anything as long as they get over these misconceptions, right? And they really can reinvent themselves and don't get stuck in the mud. Don't get tied up in your own challenges. Understand that you could just, if you take action, get around the right people who are going to uplift and encourage you, and start doing some of the right things, good things will start to happen. And also, there's also things like creative visualization, as self-talk, all those things will help you as well. We didn't talk about that. We were keeping a little bit more sort of tactical or practical, but those are good things too. So just know, viewers, that you guys can accomplish anything you put your mind to. Again, if a shy, introverted, picked on, bully, learning disabled, dyslexic, no college degree, guy can get to where I am, and I'm still haven't arrived. I got plenty to go. If you were work grocery store guy, no college degree, also not even a writer's. You didn't take any kind of writing courses, and look at who you are now today. Anybody could do anything they really put their mind to. So hopefully you got that from the show tonight. I don't know if Cameron has left the show here, but I know we want to end the show with our countdown to crush it. Cameron, any final thoughts on your side, sir?
I just wanted to make a big shout out to, first of all, Steve, for being an amazing guest, sharing incredible insight. Love the Grammy story. Love the build up, because I think that overnight success piece, it takes a lot of work to get there. And I think people forget that, you're comparing a lot of times your day one to somebody's year 10. And it doesn't always seem like that because we're in a fast paced world, but you really got to be patient with it. So I really respect that. And then I also wanted to just give a big thank you to our sponsors who help us be here for you every week. I posted a link in the chat. Go in there, support our sponsors. If you want to get good at LinkedIn, you want to set up a meeting with Jordan Mendoza. We're in his 12-week LinkedIn coaching program. So if you want to be like us and be awesome on LinkedIn, get in touch with Jordan. If you want to connect with people and you want to sell more through a real process and actually be in people's inboxes and get responses and get work done, get sugar, honey, iced tea done, get in touch with Wes with salesconnector.com. Check out our sponsors. Check out those links. We appreciate you, and we want you to go out there and crush it. So we're going to do our countdown. Here we go.
All right, Rush, you're going to count with us. Ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Crush it!
Have an amazing week, everybody. Man, Steve Olenski, you are awesome. You are the truth. You are truly the oracle of marketing. Thank you so much for being with us today. Everybody have an amazing week. We will see you next week on Wednesday. We have a show Wednesday, May 4th, 1 p.m. Eastern time, episode 61 with Robbie Samuels. Build an audience before you sell anything. Would you agree that that's a smart strategy, Steve Olenski?
Oh my gosh, yeah, absolutely. Always know your audience.
So we got some approval. We got some buy-in here. We'll see you next week. Thank you, and be well.
Steve Spiro, you're a mentor, you're a consultant, you're a business owner, but most importantly, you're a host of your own show and you're also a master connector.
Steve Spiro is one of my idols, and I love listening to everything that he does. He's such a dynamic individual.
Some of the topics I really enjoy speaking on is how to really connect, whether it be in person or through social media. I love to lead with my weaknesses. I lead with, my vulnerabilities. It's fine because I'm okay with who I am. Number 2 is how to go from being inward focused, self-focused, into others focused. Being willing to give and go out there and look to serve. That will attract the right things. Another one is on leveraging LinkedIn to really grow your business. You could reach a lot more people. You could broadcast a message to people that actually consented to want to know you. And then lastly, overcoming big obstacles. I love sharing. I was a shy, introverted kid, picked on, bullied, learning disabled, dyslexic, really in a dark place. I was really in a box, in a shell, and I've been able to break out of that box. And so I love being able to inspire people and really help them. So the Master Connector was born. The world is my networking event, right? I meet people all the time. My goal is to meet 3 strangers every single day.
Steve is open to meeting you. You should set up a face-to-face with Steve. One little conversation can really change your life.